An eyeshadow palette filled with brown colors, let me tell ya, it really hits to see my comment. It should be scared. Because this year, 2024, I really tapped into my truest self of really only doing neutral eye looks. Don't get me wrong, the colored looks are fun, but I feel like neutral eye looks were really in, so I just was so inspired for the most simple, easy neutral eye looks. Which, not to deter you from this video, I'm looking at the palettes I have in front of me, which I at first said kind of boring, but that's the point. You wouldn't have clicked onto this if you also were not a boring. So welcome, my fellow BBs. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the top 10 neutral eyeshadow palettes that I wore the most in 2024 for this year. And this year is the year that I've tried the least amount of palettes in years. So these palettes have gotten so much use, like so much. So it truly, not that I was not authentic in the past, I of course was, but like I wore these babies down. Like it gets as, this is as authentic as it gets. There will be a grand total of 0 surprises in here, but these are my top 10 eyeshadow palettes that are neutral for 2024. Okay, this is in no particular order. I'm like looking, I have a lot of multiples for my favorite brands. So I really tapped into eyeshadow palettes that I truly loved for their formula. This is the only brand that only has one palette. It's from ABH. It's fairly new, but I am quite shocked at how much I love this. Now this is a warm leaning neutral eyeshadow palette. Typically, I love a good cool toned or I love like a good true neutral brown tone. But I need a warm tone in there occasionally. Sometimes the outfit calls for it, the season calls for it. And this is one of my favorites that I tried this year. It's the Spice palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I've said a lot about this palette recently because it is fairly new. I picked it up for the most recent Sephora savings event. But I have truly enjoyed my time with it, despite it being warm, despite me saying so many times in my channel, I just don't love warm tones as much. Like, this is not too warm, but it still gave that fall pumpkin spice latte vibe. It also has a cool duochrome in here. The mattes are very easy to use, extremely blendable. The shimmers are very textured on the eyelid, which is what I like, but not textured enough that it like emphasizes texture in an unflattering way. It's that gorgeous ABH formula, which if you're not familiar with the formula, use a light hand, tap off your brush, and probably don't do your face makeup first, which kind of sounds bad, but it's very good quality. It's rich. You get the saturation that you're looking for. And this is a warm tone color story that I am very comfortable with. I find it to be flattering, not too orange on me. So that's my recommendation if you're looking for something warm but not too orange. Really beautiful shimmers in this. I just hate the packaging. I'm sad ABH didn't launch a big palette this year. But I will admit this palette is kind of truly stunning. So it has quickly climbed up to a top 10er on this list. Makeup by Mario, if you ask me, had an all-star year. As I'm really rounding up my favorite products for the years, I'm paying attention to what brands launched what in the year, and just about everything that Makeup by Mario launched this year, I mean, top notch. So earlier in the year, you'll recall, it feels like it's been in the line for forever, but Makeup by Mario launched the Master Mattes, the neutral, and I have poo-pooed on the original Master Mattes palettes because why get that when you can get Viseart? The quality was dry to me. It wasn't as blendable. I wasn't into the Master Mattes, the OG one, and I would always call it overrated. There's so much better out there. There's so much better out there. And then he came out with this, so I was kind of ready to poo-poo on it as well. The formula in this is different than the original. This is creamy, buttery, blendable, everything that I felt like the original wasn't. And not only that, but these colors are more on the neutral slash cool tone. So you have a couple gray tones here. There's some with a slight peach undertone, but for the most part, this palette leans towards a true neutral, sometimes leaning cool kind of color story. It's all mattes. And one of the reasons that I said this year was a little bit boring in the lineup, maybe a little bit of repetition, you've seen me use these over and over and over again, which is a good thing. But one of the reasons for that is because I was also very much into single eyeshadows this year. This year for me, it was all about the simple look of getting the glaze, the pop color all over the lid, whether that be from a single shadow stick, from my Kofi pot, from my Half Magic Beauty. I always need a background to those shades, and that is where a palette like this would come in handy, particularly the first half of the year when this palette was fresh in my collection. I was reaching for this almost every single day because it had a great brow highlight shade. If I just needed an eyeliner, I would reach in here. If I needed a crease shade, there's ample crease shades here that are same but different. They really changed up the look. So especially if you've also been into the individual shadows like I was this year for that all over lid shade, this is perfect to just keep by you, because at least one point in your makeup routine every day, you might need something from here, because I know I did. So not only was the formula upgraded in here, these shades, the perfect base. The perfect base. The next palette that I have is on my eyes right now. If you want the full tutorial, if it's not up yet, it will be up. What's the video called? I haven't titled it officially, but it's like #1 favorite in every category from Sephora, something of that nature, right? I'm still formulating it in my head, but it's what's on my eyes. It's the other Makeup by Mario palette that launched this year. Now this one, I was like, am I gonna count this as neutral? Because initially when I was thinking of this video idea, I was thinking of brown palettes, but like this is neutral. It's just not brown. So this is the Ethereal Eyes Moonlight palette from Makeup by Mario, and this one is like really, really cool toned. So this one is like edging away from brown, but like more grays. I mean, there is a brown here, and of course I used the brown shade today. I definitely stay towards this half of the palette, but you also can get pretty non-neutral looks with this, but I still consider this to be a neutral palette. And honestly, the pickings were slim this year, so this one just counted as 10 here. So what I did to create this look, I just have this shade right here under the brow bone. You see that little bit of brightness? I have this shade literally all over, messily all over my crease and on my lower lash line. I have this shade. I like smoked it on my lash line. I do have a brown pencil liner. That's where most of that deep depth is coming from, but that dark brown helped create the smokiness as well as along my lower lash line with a brown in the waterline. And then this shade, I literally just puked it all over my eyelid. I put it everywhere, and that's the kind of style look that I've been really enjoying. I really like having a lot of depth around the areas, like my eye, my waterline, my lash line. I like the depth coming from there, so this has kind of been a favorite look of mine. Normally, I'm not so into like all rimmed dark around the whole eye, but when used like this, it actually is flattering and doesn't make the eyes look quite as small as it would if you didn't have this outer shadow. Anyways, great luxe formula here once again. Really buttery, smooth, blendable mattes, beautiful shimmer shades here that don't have any fallout. I do have my qualms with this, okay? You can check out my full review I did when this launched. There are some things that I would have changed about this for my own preferences. But overall, like, stunning palette, one of the most beautiful palettes that launched this year, and one of the most used palettes, honestly. Even though, like, it can look a little bit scary and you can get some more bold looks with this palette, the base colors are there, super natural looks you can create. Now, there really was only one brand, in my opinion, this year that kept it fresh. In a market where eyeshadow palettes are no longer the coveted makeup item to launch, no longer the hottest topic of the town. And these are numbers, guys. I'm not making this up. There's proof in the analytics. What I'm saying is true. You can still love eyeshadow palettes, but the numbers talk. Anyways, you can't fight with me on this one. But in that kind of market, there's one brand that has managed to keep it fresh, keep it exciting, and make it feel like we are not in this time. Like, when these eyeshadows launch, it's such a big deal. It's as exciting as it could get. It's as if all eyeshadow palettes are popular. But no, it's just from this brand. Do you know where I'm going? Like, half of this video I feel like is Natasha Denona. But as the kids say, my queen has served. So let's go over my top 3, and I talk about these consistently. In fact, 2 of these I believe were literally in last year's video, but gotta stay true to myself. These are what I've been using if I want a neutral makeup look. I would say the I Need a Nude palette has grown on me even more this year. I've been loving the kind of peachy tones that are in here, but particularly what has made me reach for this palette more. I've been telling you how I like just like a wash of a pretty pop shade all over the lid. This is chock full of really beautiful pop shades. My go-to look has been a simple crease color and then an all over lid color plastered all over the eyelid space, even over the crease. This palette has been amazing for that. I don't have to think about the looks that I want to create. And I've been liking the peachier tones in here as well, which I thought I wouldn't. I mean, something about the shimmers in here are just so stunning and glimmery and reflective on the eyelid. I've mentioned this last year. It's been a favorite palette of mine ever since it launched. You know the drill. But I did want to come back this year and say I'm still loving it. And remember that phrase I've been saying a lot on my channel lately. Hello, mother. Does it pass the test of time? Like, that's huge. And only time will tell if it will pass the test of time. She's passing it. Flying colors. Another one. Passing with flying colors. Glam palette. Though I will say, last year, this was probably number 1 and this was probably number 2. This year, it's switched. This has been demoted because I cannot believe I'm saying this. Like, cannot. But at times, I feel that this can be slightly gray. I don't know. I mean, there still are some true brown tones, but like, sometimes I felt like this was a little too monochromatic. That being said, it still is one of my favorite neutral palettes ever. I'm still reaching for this one a lot. It has a lot of those essential colors that I feel I need no matter what I'm doing on the eyes. Even if I'm pulling one of my favorite individual shades, you know, I'm reaching for one of these crease colors. I'm reaching for this color to use as eyeliner because I really stepped away from eyeliner this year and have been using eyeshadows for eyeliners. So it is essential for my palette to have a super dark matte. So again, this is like, I kind of like it for the same reasons as I Need a Nude. It's just within my wheelhouse here, within my comfort zone. Really pretty shades for all over the eyelid. You can't go wrong with it. It's Natasha Denona quality. Now, the last Natasha Denona palette that I have is one that launched this year. She launched a few, like, was it 3 palettes this year? And this one ended up being my most used, my most favorite by far. And I really wasn't that excited for it, which is the funny part. But, you know, you can't shake the natural person that you are. And if you like neutrals and Natasha comes out with a neutral palette, you're gonna reach for it. So this is the Natasha Denona Golden palette. And I thought it was very boring, not in a bad way, but I thought it was nothing exciting, very boring. But there are some standout shades in here that I was just consistently reaching for. I can point them out to you. I used Aria so much. I used Log so much. Kava is the shade of the year for me. It is the prettiest all over sparkly golden color. Every single time I wore Kava, somebody was asking what was on my eyelid, and it's this shade Kava right here. Now, some of the shades, but I just use this so much for certain shades in particular that it had to be in my top 10. I used it that much. Did this just give away what was next? I'm gonna be real mad if it did. Anyways, same song, same dance, same explanations as the Natasha Denona palettes that I spoke of previously. But like, my number 1 favorite eyeshadow brand, come here. My number 1 favorite eyeshadow brand is Natasha Denona. And I know for my OGs, you're like, what about Pat McGrath? Where's the Mothership palette, Pat? I'm getting petty over here. Anyways, moving on to the next brand. Another long lover of mine, a favorite eyeshadow brand I've had for years, just quality. Busy Art. So I have 2 palettes from them, and this first one is like an OG. It's been in my favorite neutral palettes videos on and off over the years, and this year again, she's come out on top. So this is like the original professional makeup artist favorite, the Neutral Mattes palette. And this one, it's a fresh one because it says for the 20th anniversary, they actually redid the packaging, and so they sent me it. So this re-entered like my new eyeshadow palette drawer, and I have been using it all the time. This is like one of the most saturated eyeshadow formulas that still performs, that still blends, because sometimes there is such a thing as oversaturation when it comes to the pigment level that you get from palettes, and then you'll find that it's difficult to blend. Not with this. You can use the lightest touch of the black and it's like bam on the eyelids, but it's still easy to work with. This, it's just basic matte tones that you need. It's been perfect for the style of makeup that I've been mentioning that I've been doing this year. And I always need an eyeliner, I always need a crease color, I always need a lid color or a brow color. This is like my right-hand man, my go-to, my trusty friend, been here for years. She's gonna get trusty and dusty very, very soon. A staple, a classic, an OG. God, I could kiss her. But Viseart, she's still keeping it a little bit fresh. They just launched a palette, and this one is like new. So this one has not stood the test of time. I want you to keep that in mind. But like, I love it, and I want to mention it. It's the brand new, and it even sold out, Cyrenaice Etendu. Has that same awesome packaging of the new neutral mattes. And this palette, it looks almost like beige, like monotone, but it's so not on the eyelid. It's a great formula. You have some shimmers here. This palette is neutral, but it is unique. And it is a stunning tone overall to be rocking in the winter time as well. It's giving cold but sultry is how I can describe this. Like, this is a perfect winter toned palette. It has a fun pop in there, but it is overwhelmingly a neutral palette, but it's the kind of neutral palette where it's like, you might not have these tones. It's neutral but different, a nice play on it. And like I said, it has quite literally amazing, reliable Viseart quality as well. It has great varying tones from dark to light. We could even go lighter and a little deeper, but anyways, I still think the division of formulas and depths and finishes are really great in this palette. And it's neutral, but it still somehow manages to be relatively unique to the market. I mean, so many palettes have been done, you know, there's going to be repetition everywhere, but it feels fresh to me. It really, really does. Okay, moving on to the last two palettes. They kind of go hand in hand. They're kind of similar, but a little different. I'm going to talk about both because the explanation of formulas is going to be the same from YSL. I discovered these style of eyeshadow palettes last year, and I have never ever looked back. And these are like the one luxury house product that I'm talking about. If you don't know, when I started my channel, I was majority a luxury beauty channel, but I did back off because I was feeling less excited about the luxury beauty market these last few years. I just felt like the quality was not matching up to the price point. You know, I felt like getting the quality that I wanted, I could get at a high-end price point as opposed to a luxury price point. The price point differences just weren't matching up. So, stepped away especially from luxury eyeshadows. But when I discovered these, it brought me back to the reason that I loved luxury makeup to begin with. I mean, I'm not going to say that these are worth the money. You can get great shadows at a better price point, but for the luxury experience, for the reason that I began getting into luxury makeup is how I truly feel about these and their formulation. How I would describe luxury formula eyeshadows. Like, I'm talking true fashion house, priced, way too expensive priced eyeshadows. What I am looking for is they have an elegance to them on the eyelid. They should especially be a formulation that work for mature eyelids and that they essentially blend themselves. I'm talking no wrist work. And that is what these palettes has, as well as the amazing packaging. So they have two neutral shades that are like kissed by the gods, really. So the first one, this is from the first round that I ever tried these palettes, 100. It's the perfect, like, true neutral brown eyeshadow palette, okay? You have different tones. This could be a little messy, which I think kind of reduces the value of it being luxury, but like, I literally don't care. I don't know why, I just don't care. These, they do something for me, and that's what matters. And I love the tones here, and I don't have to put any elbow grease into blending these out and they all work so beautiful to create the most easy, thoughtless look. Like, you don't have to put any brain cells into it. The other one that I've been loving them, this one is a newer one that I tried this year. And this pretty much kept me on the YSL train because sometimes I can forget about it if I'm not using it. But this sparked the memory, like, oh, there's other great ones as well that I already have. So this is the shade 710. Now this one is a little bit more warm, a little bit more golden. I don't know, how would you describe the differences? Because here's 100, here's 710. Like, listen, they're the same, but they're different. It's different. This is like more peachy almost as well. Can you open and stay open? Anyways, these are not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but when I don't want to put any thought into my neutral look, I want it to be done for me, essentially. That is when I am reaching for these palettes. And of course, like, you feel super special using it. And I love the way that luxury satins look on the eyelid. They don't emphasize dryness or any fine lines or anything like that. I feel like this one looks barely used. I've used it a lot, I swear. These ones I would say are a little bit more niche, a little bit like, you don't need to have these. These are more of a treat, but it is certainly a treat whenever I use them. So they've definitely been beating out a lot of other eyeshadow palettes that I have in my collection for attention and being used. So there we have it, my top 10 neutral eyeshadow palettes of 2024. I've done this video over the last couple of years, so definitely make sure you check out the ones I've talked about in previous years. You'll see some familiar faces. Some of these are repeats, so you know I really love them, but there also are a lot of other great options. I was looking through those lists today to see just how repetitive I was being, and like, oh, some of those are bangers, seriously. So check those out if you are a neutral eyeshadow lover and are looking for a little bit more inspo. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. And thank you so much for spending your time with me this December. I know it's a crazy month for everybody. I really hope you can just sit down and this is your you time, your relaxing time, and hang out with me. I really do appreciate it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will have all of the eyeshadow palettes that I used in today's video linked down below, as well as all the makeup that's on my face, because this makeup, phenomenal. Really, really gorgeous today. All using products that I loved. And I'm just trying to keep chatting. I don't know why. So I'm gonna hopefully see you guys tomorrow. Bye guys, have a good one.
It's delicious.